Hello and welcome to Kemet Capital, community of holders and seekers of African capital. I'm your host, JS, and before we start, you guys already know we begin with our word of affirmation. Our guiding principle is the Cobb Douglas function, guys. On our way to make Africa great again, it's through economic power, economic strength, and in order for us to achieve that, we need to produce more in a more efficient way. By the way, guys, this formula here can be applied to any aspect of your life. If you want to achieve output, i.e., results, you need to apply your labor, and the capital here in your life will be the time. So, guys, we need to use our time accordingly because this is the most important assets that we hold. All right, finish with the introduction. Today, we're going to react to this interview from CNBC Africa, and it's from the IFC representative, uh, uh, regional director for the African region on the IFC. All right, guys, let's jump in the video and let's discuss as we go along.
2025 Africa Caucus meetings are underway in Bangui, that's in the Central African Republic, where the International Finance Corporation has finalized its 2030 strategy with job creation at its core. Ethiopis Tafara, Regional Vice President for Africa at the IFC, emphasized the need for policy reforms to help de-risk projects.
All right, guys, just to put everybody into the context. So the IFC is one of the five institutions, the World Bank Group. Each of those institutions have a specific mandate to support developing and middle-income countries. Together, they provide financing, policy advice, technical assistance, and risk mitigation to reduce poverty and promote sustainable development. So, what are those institutions? The first one is the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. This one was established at the tail end of World War II or European War II in 1944. The role is to lend to middle income countries rather, and credit worthy low income countries. I don't know which are those credit worthy low income countries, but so they're still there, and they provide loans, guarantees, and policy advice at near market rates. The focus here is on infrastructure, public service reform, education, and climate resilience. Another one of those institutions is the International Development Association, established in 1960 to provide grant and zero or low interest loans to the poorest countries, so i.e., African countries, most of them. It is funded by contributions from donor government, and the focus is on fragile and conflict-afflicted states, basic services, and human capital. Another one of those institutions is the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, that was established in 1988. And the role of this institution is to provide political risk insurance and credit enhancement to investors and lenders. The focus of the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, MIGA, is to foreign direct investment in high risk environments and fragile states, i.e., again, African countries. The fourth one is International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes, established in 1966. The role is to facilitate arbitration, conciliation of investment disputes between international investors and states, and to provide legal infrastructure for resolving cross-border investment conflicts. And the final institution that will be the focus of the reaction today is the International Finance Corporation, established in 1956, and the role is to invest and advise the private sector in developing countries by providing loans, equity investments, equity investments, and mobilization of private capital. The focus here is to private investment, enterprise development, innovation, small and medium enterprises, and infrastructure. So, in summary, those four institutions are presented here on the screen. So, the International Bank for IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, focuses the target group is development. The main role is loan, to middle income countries, and the key instruments are loan guarantees. You have the IDA, International Development Association, that supports for poorest countries. And the target groups are also government, and the key instruments are grant and constitutional loans. The International Finance Corporation, private sector development. The target group are companies and financial institutions, and the instruments are equity loans and advisory. We have the MIGA, which is the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. The main role is risk insurance for investors, and the group that they target are private investors, and they provide guarantees, political risk insurance. And finally, you have the National Center for Settlement and Investment Disputes. The main role here is dispute resolution. The target groups are governments, investors, and the key instruments are arbitration and conciliation. So each of these institutions complements the others. That makes the World Bank Group a unique development partner that works with both governments and private investors to tackle poverty, to promote inclusive and sustainable growth. So, guys, in my opinion, I'm very Afrocentric. So to have those, Bretton Woods institution, Western institution coming to the country with the goal of industrialize, industrialize, develop our economies, for me doesn't ring, it doesn't ring true. For me, the capital has to be African capital, but then again, we cannot deny the work and the achievement that those Bretton Woods institutions have accomplished on the continent. So they should not and cannot be dismissed. That's why I wanted to react to this video with you guys, and you guys will let me know what you think. And let's jump in.
And integrate African businesses into global value chains. You spoke to my colleague, Kennedy Bomo.
Meetings like this are important because they afford us an opportunity um, to speak to the governors and to governments and let them know what we are working on or what we're planning to work on as part of our strategy. It just so happens that we've finalized our 2030 strategy, something we're calling IFC 2030. And events like this are an opportunity to speak to what that strategy is. Our strategy right now is very much focused on job creation. We see that as being the biggest challenge that the continent faces. And we have 5 or 6 strands of work that we look to pursue in each of the countries in which we operate, which we think will lead to greater job creation. Energy is something that we always work on because we believe, and I think everybody understands, that without energy, no development is possible. So we will continue to pursue our energy agenda, looking to, as you know, we've got the M300, which is our initiative together with the African Development Bank to electrify 300 million people by 2030.
Totally agree with the vice president here. You guys already know we discussed here in this community the importance of electric power, of power in general. No engine, right? You cannot move the car if there's no engine. That's why you cannot improve your economy if the power supply is not reliable. That's one of the fulcrum of any economy is the power supply. It has to be reliable, it has to be consistent. So that's one of the first, steps that we need to make in terms of development of the continent. We need to have a reliable power supply across the board. That's a no-brainer. And that's actually a starter. We cannot, you know, we start from power generation and then the rest will follow. The factories, the warehouses, the household will be more efficient and the economy will thrive. So yeah, I totally agree here with with the VP.
In addition to that, we're looking at logistics and transportation because, again, you need the enablement of logistics and transportation for job creation. But then we're looking at very
Especially when we targeting the African continent as a single market, we need to have transportation infrastructure. We need to have shipping. We need to have railways. We need to have highways. We need to have more local airports that do local transit between smaller towns within the continent. So transportation infrastructure also is the key.
specific areas of job creation. Agriculture as business as a business is one of key focus for us. We're looking at tourism, given the job creation. It is a multiplier when it comes to job creation. You look at hotels, all the services that go into hotels, transportation that's required to get people around the country. It's a
mm,
huge job creation engine. Um, we're looking at digitalization because everybody focuses on transportation infrastructure, right? But the truth is, today, to connect people to markets and markets to markets, it's not just physical infrastructure; it's also digital infrastructure.
mm, mm, mm,
And then, of course, we're looking at other areas, SME financing, which we see as being very important. Most jobs in any economy are created by SMEs, up to 90%.
mm.
They're challenged when it comes to financing, so thinking of innovative ways to actually do that.
Yeah.
This event is an opportunity to talk about that and get feedback from our governor.
Guys, the VP here is not only talking about policy. They are actually actions that they've already made. You know, the support for SMEs is it's notable. They partner with local banks to expand credit to small and medium enterprises, which is huge in terms of capital allocation to that sector of the economy. So all in all, they're doing what they're saying they do.
And feedback from the governments as to whether or not what we're thinking about is something that's consistent with their agendas.
Yeah, because that is that alignment that I also want to get here.
Yeah.
Yes, you have your priorities.
Yes.
The governors have theirs. Where is that meeting point for both ideas to clash?
Our good fortune is they seem to be aligned. That's what we're hearing here. That's what we hear when we have our bilateral meetings with governments. And I've been doing a fair amount of travel over the course of the past 9 weeks, meeting with various governments. And consistently, what I'm hearing back is that our strategy resonates very much with their
Mm.
priorities.
Yeah, because one of the other challenges you see is how to crowd in private sector players here, especially when we're dealing with infrastructure projects, which is one of the key focus here. And I'm curious to know in terms of the IFC's engagement with the private sector, some of the feedback you're getting, and how we can achieve scale in that area.
So the feedback we're getting from the private sector is generally quite positive. They see us as an engine for de-risking some projects. Our
Mm.
involvement in a project actually gives them comfort to come in and co-finance with us, and that is with projects at all scales. It's large infrastructure projects as well as smaller investments we might be making in the real sector. The key is finding these projects, developing these projects, and getting them to bankability, and then mobilizing our partners, the private sector, to actually invest alongside us or work on the project together with us.
So, what reforms or commitments then do you expect from the governments, the African governments, to scale up your engagement here on the continent?
Well, I mean, private sector development frequently entails policy reform, policy changes. If you take M300 as an example, where we're looking again to bring electricity to 300 million people in 5 years' time, some of it's going to require that the government actually address the setting of tariffs. It's going to be looking at the efficiency and the viability of the off-taker, right?
As the IFC, as a provider of advisory services, definitely offer that technical assistance, and companies and government by helping improve, the business environment, the regulatory framework, and corporate governments. They also support financial inclusion, gender equality, and climate resilience. So the IFC guys, they're working.
So
They're
a
working.
key to the success of the M300 initiative is actually the national compacts. We have these compacts that the governments are entering into where they're making commitments. And on the strength of those commitments around reforms, you see investors prepared to actually make investments together with us.
I'd love to bring in the area of the SMEs here, because I will look at some of the challenges that they face, and you find that they struggle in one key area, which is accessing global value chains. And I would love to know what you're doing in that area to help some of these SMEs.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story to give you a sense of how we get to these global value chains. So Um, take fragile environments. One of We have an initiative called Local Champions Initiative. What we try to do is identify companies um, that are serving a particular need in a fragile country, helping them grow, turning them from national champions or local champions into national champions, from national champions into regional champions, from regional champions into, why not, continental or international champions.
Mm, mm,
Um,
mm, mm.
and we grow alongside them, or we accompany them on this journey. It starts with advice. It turns then into finance. Then it turns into connecting them to other markets, right? And we've done this, throughout the history of the IFC.
And that's huge, guys, because for most entrepreneur on the continent, the first challenge is access to capital, and the second access to different market. So first of all, you don't have capital to expand, and then when you do have capital to expand, going into another market, even if it's just a neighboring country, is so challenging because the policies are different. So you need to harmonize that in order for to have, as you said, local champion becoming regional champion. So there's still a lot of work to do, but I'm glad that the IFC is already, stepping forward and helping those local champions become, who knows, maybe in the future, global champions.
Just to give you a sense, people don't realize HDFC, which is a housing financier in India. In the 1970s, we made an equity investment and helped it grow. Today, it's the fifth largest financial institution in the world, right? So
Power of capital allocation. That's the power, capital attraction. When you're able to attract capital, you can expand your operation and look at this talking about. They went from that to the fifth largest in the entire planet, an Indian company. Guys, we can have the same on the continent if the capital is allocated in an efficient way to our local champions for them to become global champions, you know? So, all in all, we need to focus on the work that they do and maybe leverage, the entrepreneurs on the continent to have them being local champions already on their own right and by their own become regional and global champions in the future using institution like the IFC. In my opinion, we shouldn't really focus or rely that much on foreign and Western capital. We have the African Finance Corporation as well, although it's on a smaller scale, you must imagine, but it's there. It's there to provide capital for infrastructure project, for development focused ventures. So, but we cannot also dismiss, as I said, what the IFC is doing. We need to be thankful. We need to be, study what they do and try to apply that to our own institutions.
those are the kinds of stories and those are the kinds of things we try to do. But we start small in Sierra Leone. We've invested in a company. I think we started working with them 5 years ago. 5 years ago, all onions in Sierra Leone were imported. Today, they serve the entire market. It's a
That's
fragile
it.
country, a
That's it.
challenging country. Yet we found a local champion that we've turned into a national champion, and hopefully we'll see them grow into a regional and
That's it.
potentially a continental champion.
Right, finally, now let's
Right now, that local champion in Sierra Leone become the biggest, onion producer on the continent, and why not in the world? It would be an amazing feat.
quite a lot has been said
Sierra
here in the
Leone.
past 2 days. But for you,
Mm.
not with your heart at the IFC, you as a person of African descent, what has been the biggest takeaway from you here? On what really needs to be solved?
The biggest takeaway for me here is the biggest takeaway I have from my been in the job only 12, 13 weeks now, right?
Okay.
But my biggest takeaway is the energy of the youth and the courage of the youth. What I see is a population of young people looking forward.
There's nothing on the continent, right? We have no choice but to be brave and to be courageous. That's just goes with the
um, dynamic, willing to take on challenges,
yeah,
um,
yeah, because we have
and
no choice.
who are going
Nobody's
to
coming
make an
to help
enormous
us.
difference. And I actually think we need to invest in them. That I think is my biggest takeaway.
Indeed.
Kate Kalo, I think, is representative of this youth that is the promise and the future of the country.
All right, guys, we're coming to the end of the video. Interesting discussion from the regional vice president of the National Finance Corporation here. I'm glad that it's actually an African running the show there, although it's only on the regional level, but at least he has a voice, when they do global talks, I hope and I'm assuming. So you guys let me know what you think in the comment. Interesting video, and you guys be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.